107.5 FM. And this is our first anniversary of the William V. Banks Broadcast Museum. And as we look back on 2017, it was a great year coming out of the gate. And visitors have consistently told us they are impressed with the museum space, the videos of progress, and the positive impact of the images and stories on display, and are proud that the history of Wgpr TV 62 is finally being told. As we mark this first anniversary, we pay tribute to the legacy of two men who had dreams of a better tomorrow, Dr. William Vinoy Banks and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Dr. King dedicated his life to the struggle of racial and economic equality. His dream was for a country where his children would be judged not by their color, but by the content of their character. His I Have a Dream speech inspired Americans, black and white, to fight for justice and civil rights. In the wake of that fight, William V. Banks purchased a radio station in 1964, WGPR 107.5 FM. He would later dream of owning a television station, but he had to overcome skeptics who said African Americans could not obtain a license to launch a TV station, did not have the required capital, lacked skilled talent in the community, and that advertisers would not buy time on a black-owned station. He would prove the skeptics wrong. When WGPR TV 62 went on the air on September 29, 1975, and would stay on the air for the next 20 years. Today, the legacy of that achievement is all around us in this museum, thanks to the dreams and determination of William V. Banks and the legacy of Martin Luther King's dream of justice and equality for all. We hope that if this is the first time you visited the museum, that you will come back and that you will tell others. We welcome all of you back as many times as you care to come. Joe?
Hello, everyone. So glad to see so many people that I know and to come out for the museum. And so many people here actually have experience as part of the WGPR experience. So glad you came out. You know, the one thing I can say is that as I look at this exhibit, I think about the journey it took, and it took us about 3 years to get from just a concept when folks like Karen, who is the executive director, who's been the workhorse of this whole project, Amir, Doug, RJ, just folks all around who came together with the idea that there was a story to be told about the history of WGPR. And after many, many hours and really a very interesting journey, we find ourselves here celebrating 1 year. And so I'm really proud and so glad that you all are here, and you all have a lot to be proud of because you all are part of this. And we really have to thank Mr. Hollowell and Mr. James Dogan, who are the leaders of the International Masons, because they are the ones who have supported and made this happen. Because, you know, this is a space, it's a beautiful space, but they could have done something else with the space other than doing a museum. But when we brought the idea to them, they embraced it and they supported it in every way, and that's why it's here today. So thank you, Mr. Hollowell, and thank you all. And now I'll turn it over to Karen, who is the...
Joe Spencer is the president of the WGPR Historical Society and was my boss back in the day, and I learned a lot. So this was very reminiscent of those days in terms of a team coming together to produce a product and have a vision, and now it's become reality. So this is just amazing. And so we thought it was important to celebrate the first anniversary because it's an indication of, well, where have we been in the past year? Well, we did a lot. We had very famous people come through. Kathy Hughes came through, you know, Radio 1. She was quite impressed. We were able to open up the museum for special events. So we had one of our alumni, Bruce Harper, who is now a documentary filmmaker, if you didn't know. And I just learned, Joe, that he had a documentary about Martin Luther King. He came by the other day and told me. I said, well, I didn't know. We'll have to do that next year. But he did one summer '67, and we were able, this is a portable exhibit space. So we were able to move the exhibits around, bring in chairs, and have that opportunity for a series we call Behind the Lens, where we show a film or a documentary, and then people get a chance to talk to the director, producer, how did they all do it. So one of the people that is alumni as well, who everybody has worked together on this, is Daphne Hughes. Daphne is the executive producer of American Black Journal. And as a matter of fact, you know, we have, I'm not going to point out some people who are here because we have a quiz we want people to take, the answer of which are here. And some of the people are here, and I was about to point them out. And that would be giving away an answer, but they know who they are. And also, as Joe said, I want to thank the International Free and Accepted Modern Masons and Eastern Star, who have given generously to this museum. If you look around and you see the rails around here, that's all part of the original studio setup. But if you look at the black wall back there, that's all the way the space. But this was just blank. There was nothing here. It was an old anchor desk. It was kind of like an old warehouse place. And so a lot of work had to be done, new flooring put in, these walls put in the back. Everything moved around. So this is the HGTV, if you ever watch that show, of how do you make a studio and a museum come to life. This is living history. This is living history. We've got a lot of people here who have contributed greatly to that outcome. And we've got some more people coming in. So we thank you very much for coming out today for this event. We're going to have this gentleman back here, courtesy of R.J. Watkins and Henry Tyler, who is going to be doing some oral history. So this is a chance to tell a story and think about how to achieve your dream. We've achieved part of our dream, so we want to have a chance to do that. But here's the real moment. We have a noted local historian here. And if you've done Every Day in Black History, or if you've seen on American Black Journal, they have Every Day in Black History. We have Ken Coleman. He has, and not only that, oh, isn't that sweet? Not only that, Ken is the author of a book about the history of radio, black radio in this market. And we just thought it was a perfect opportunity for him to speak, and he's been a volunteer for us as well. So I said, gee, we got to have Mr. Ken Coleman.
Well, thank you so much. Good morning to you all. Great to see all of you. Several friends out there and new friends. Chilly day, so I'm glad we're all together. I had an opportunity to tour this space. To Karen's point, I had an opportunity to tour this space a couple of years ago. Before the floor and the walls and everything that you see here. And I just want to echo the sentiment from Karen and others that this is a tremendous space, a great repository, and I'm glad you had a chance to see it. Give yourselves a hand again. I've got some prepared remarks, but I know that you're interested in those prize opportunities and those oral histories, and so I'm going to condense my statements. In fact, the great news is that Mr. Hollowell gave some of that great history about Dr. Banks and how we got here today. So I'll just talk a little bit about at least my subject matter. And I make the argument, ladies and gentlemen, that the civil rights movement in Detroit was very special. In fact, I'd make the argument that the civil rights movement in Detroit was unlike any other place in America. And why do I say that? Yes, this has been the home of great institutions, this metropolitan area. Second Baptist Church, the state's oldest African-American church. The Shrine of the Black Madonna, a very progressive political, cultural organization. The Nation of Islam. Any number of institutions have their home here in Detroit. But I would argue that there's another group of people, another class of people, if you will, that are right up there and have solidified themselves as real players and agents in the civil rights movement. And that's the Black American, the Detroit American radio personality. What do you think? At one time we called them DJs. Joe, now I think they call them on-air personalities, right? RJ, it has changed over the years, RJ and HT, but the reality is those men and women, and I will say women, we were leaders in that regard too, were very, very special when it comes to the upliftment of African Americans, to be sure. We know the history of Dr. Banks. Mr. Hollowell gave that history. We know that WGPR started as a radio station in 1964. Well, it was a Grosse Pointe radio station, and we added some flavor in '64, right? Where Grosse Pointe Radio is transformed to where God's presence radiates, WGPR. That was special. And I would say that Dr. Banks was a civil rights leader. Doesn't always get the same ink, if you will, or press as others who were involved in the movement. But when you come here from Kentucky, son of a sharecropper, born at the turn of the century, right in the beginning of the 1900s, and you pull yourself up and you earn degrees from Lincoln Institute and Wayne State University, you are a leader. Dr. Banks started an early career. He actually was a candidate for several offices, political offices at times. He became, with the International Masons, a real estate baron. I would argue, Karen, that Dr. Banks, Brother Hollowell, was Dan Gilbert before Dan Gilbert. He actually owned, interestingly enough, he owned the Masons owned the Broderick Tower downtown. Now here's something that a lot of people don't know. They owned the radio station that one of their competitors used as a home. WJLB, that's right, Mike Tiger Price. Tremendous businessman and competitor, and a civil rights legend, to be sure. He made it possible for black people who had aspirations to be on air, whether it was radio or television. He made that happen. He was a civil rights legend. Daphne was a young woman and learned the trade right here, giving people opportunities. And it just wasn't Dr. Banks. There was a guy named Haley Bell, a doctor who earned a degree, a dentist who earned a degree out of Meharry College in Tennessee, comes here in the 1920s. The story goes, he and Mary Banks had a choice to make. Dr. Bell said, Mary, we're either going to move to Texas or we're going to move to Detroit. And Mary said, well, I don't know which one. And the legend goes, they put both names in a bag and shook the bag up. And Lord have mercy, they got Detroit, Michigan. And we're so happy about that. But Dr. Banks started the first radio station in America, built from the ground up, WCHB, the first African-American radio station built from the ground up. That's a civil rights leader, right? Right? Give Dr. Bell some love. I mean, that's that. RJ has started a radio station. You know how hard that is. Imagine being a brother in 1952, 53, writing a letter to the FCC. Look, Dr. Bell might not even know what the FCC was, HT. But a friend of his said, look, write a letter, a proposal. And guess what? The FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, said, Dr. Bell, we are going to grant you a license. And within 2 years, on November the 7th, 1956, WCHB opened. Dr. Bell and Dr. Cox were civil rights leaders. Didn't always get the press that way, wasn't always referred to that way, but anytime you take your own money and send it down south to help register black voters, tens of thousands of dollars Dr. Bell did, that's a special person. And he also had on-air personalities who were special as well. There's a young lady who came here from Memphis, Tennessee, 1963. Recently divorced, had 3 young daughters. She was called to come to Detroit by Dr. Bell and Dr. Cox She shows up in the Inkster studio. Mike Tiger Price, you know the story. She shows up and she says, "I'm here." I said, "Who are you?" "I'm Martha Jean, the Queen." And Martha Jean comes here in 1963. Amir, you know, sets the world on fire. Becomes a very popular personality, ultimately owning her own radio station, WQBH. A civil rights leader, to be sure, I would make the argument. Maybe not always described as such, but certainly is one when you look at the activism, the Queen's community workers and all the community work that she did. Again, I think the on-air personality, the DJ, the communicator on radio, African American in Detroit in the 50s and 60s into the 70s, was a civil rights leader. How do I tie that to today? Well, obviously we're here on King Day. And over the years, in the last several years, Daphne, we've sort of fashioned the King holiday as a day of service. We say that it's great to acknowledge the work, the life, and the deeds of Dr. King, but it's also important to understand what Dr. King wanted us to do. He wanted us to create the beloved community, a community where everyone is equal, where there's equal opportunity for all, and we respect humankind, not mankind, humankind. That's what Dr. King wanted to see in his beloved community. I would argue that in Detroit, who helped make that happen and who continue to make that happen are the men and women of African descent who've had the opportunity to learn and grow and advocate on radio and on television. It is very special, my friends, and it's something that we have as a distinction that nobody else in the country has. Ruth, we were talking earlier about different parts of Michigan and certainly different parts of the United States. New York ain't got what we got, huh? Chicago ain't got what we got, HT. You've been all over the country. Where can you get a brother? RJ Watkins has got a radio station right now, and it's airing in another part of the hemisphere. That's a beautiful thing. That doesn't happen in every city. Recognize what we have here. Tell your friends and family about this museum.
And I know that the big city news was playing in the background here, but I know the mic is just picking up the sound, so we'll be able to use this going forward. Joe, did you have any final thoughts you want to share? We have our Black History quiz. Anybody was paying attention? Ken gave some answers, and I saw these young ladies were very quickly writing the answers, which is really good. They're paying attention. And we've got refreshments and so forth. We want you to enjoy the day. There are activities throughout the day. And get on the phone right now and say, "You're missing it. Come on over. You don't want to miss this." So what do you got any closing thoughts?
Yeah, you know, as you look around, you see this exhibit. It's quite nice, but it's not finished. I want you all to know. I hope that you all will take time and look at it. There's a board there at that end of the exhibit that talks about the future of this museum. On the other side of this wall here is a whole nother studio, and we plan to develop that in the future to have some whole interactive video and learning and training and so forth. So I hope that you all look at the plan there. It's just a rough plan, and we're still in the very early stages of developing it, but it is part of what we're doing. And I hope I'm not being well, I hope I'm not taking advantage of you all, but I hope you all will take time to contribute to our effort here because, you know, this thing doesn't run for free, and it is free in terms of letting people in, but it does cost money to operate this museum, and we need your support. So I would just ask you, please, if you can support in any way, support the museum. There's a little thing here. You could drop $1, or $2, or $20, a check, you know, if you got one. But we do have plans to continue to develop this, and then hopefully one day we do hope that not only will we use this space for seminars and training and exhibits of other kinds of media, that we will actually have some actual training programs here for young people. And you know, it's unlimited of what can happen if we can get the kind of support that we need. So I thank you all for coming. It's going to be a great day. Have fun. We're still early in the day. I think we're here till, what, 3:30?
3:30, yes, that's right.
3:30, so.
Fast
Okay, well with that, thank you all for coming. Thank you, Ken, for your remarks. We really appreciate it. Great story and really very significant about the impact of Detroit on our nation. Thanks again, everybody.
I sacrificed a lot of things that I didn't do, that I did, that I shouldn't have done, just to be where I need to be today and know that the dream is yet still alive and we are still striving toward having that dream to come to reality.
What would I sacrifice for my dream?
Yes.
That's a good question. I would have to say the first thing is you have to sacrifice yourself. For me, it'd be sacrificing things that I guess people want you to do versus what you have a passion for. Sometimes you have to sacrifice relationships.
Gotcha.
Because relationships can sometimes deter you from your dream. You have to do what's best for you in certain situations. And you have to sometimes have to sever ties with people because of that. Those are the things I would sacrifice.
It's a true dream. Should be willing to sacrifice your life.
Right.
Your time and your patience and everything else that goes along with it. You have to be patient.
No, that's right.
We've been patient for 350 years.
The answers. Correct, that's correct. Identify two professions held by WGPR founder William Banks outside of broadcasting.
Minister.
That's one.
And she said attorney.
No, you have to name two.
We have minister and attorney.
Okay, you are here, okay. And what did you have?
Attorney and minister.
Yeah, that's entrepreneur. Okay. You have a second one? Two professions, you have barber. Okay. So I have to take a little check on that one. What year did WGPR go on the air?
75.
We said in unison. Good.
We're good. We know our stuff.
WGPR produces its own original program. I'm going to start with you. Identify two ethnic programs aired on the station.
We know the great priest today and Polish showcase. Same thing. I have that Arab voice on there.
That was another acceptable answer.
We got Big City News and Talking Town.
You're going to have to scratch that off. You said ethnic programming. Now, that was kind of tricky. Some people said there was also art in the Detroit area station. There's 5 ethnic programs. So it could have been Boost Today, Arab Voice, Polish National. So those were other than. So I'm going to have to take you off on that.
Okay.
That was kind of trick question. That was the first one that just kind of tricks me by that. What do the call letters WGPR stand for?